Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good day.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm so excited about a couple things I want to talk about, but we're going to only talk about one in this segment because we're doing shorts today. So,
Nice. Nice. Well, let's hit it.
you want to jump in, dive in,
Let's
get at
dive
it?
in.
All right. So, one thing, I heard something in a way I hadn't heard it before, or, well, no, I wouldn't say that. I heard something that hadn't been presented for me to think about this. It's I'm still like I just am it's really exciting to me because I'm so much into the healing process and I like to understand our human brain and our brain and body connection and our spiritual connection and also reincarnation. So if you don't believe in reincarnation, this segment is not for you. Just saying. Okay. So I want to make that very clear because this is what it's going to pertain to. So in the things I had taken in as far as reading and my healing process and then teaching because I teach what resonates with me. Um, I was listening to a podcast last week. Now, the teaching process or topic is we are in a spiritual agreement with each other. So is a play. We're looking at it as a play. We have a script, so to speak, not necessarily a script, but we have our roles. So in spirit, we congregate. We have this idea of okay, I'm going to guess because this has been a huge piece of my life is I'm going to go into a human body and learn self-love, learn to love myself. Although when I get into the human body and as I get older, I don't know that that's actually what I'm doing here. But I knew there was something more than just being in a human body and then we die. So anyway, so learning in my late 20s, early 30s, learning that okay, learning this idea that our spirit comes into the human body to have growth and expansion. And we were in agreement with these people to show up. So our parents, right, their whatever their issues are or whatever their amazing life is, we come into it and we end up experiencing the things we need to do to have our growth and expansion. So from my perspective, thinking about that for myself, for my healing process. So going from a victim state of mind to a student state of mind and learning, okay, if I chose my parents and they're in an unhealthy relationship and I come into that experience, now I'm being exposed to an unhealthy relationship, to abuse and yada, yada, yada. And I age and, abuse and anger and all the things are part of me and how I'm healing that. And so just the journey of my own healing. And then in that process, learning self love. What was explained on this podcast last week, which I had not even given a thought about, is not only are those people in my life to help me with my spiritual growth and expansion, I'm in their life for the same damn thing. So if I'm learning, my main topic is self love, I'm agreeing, we're making this spiritual agreement that, okay, well, you're going to mentally, emotionally, I don't know what the conversations are, but the idea that I'm going to experience mental and emotional abuse from you. And I'm going to take that with me. And that's going to be part of my growth and expansion of learning self love. And then the idea of what is their spiritual growth and expansion from the same experience. What are they there to learn? What is the abuser as a spirit and body here to learn from the experience as well? that just hadn't even crossed my mind.
That's cool.
And I was just like, that is so, to me, so exciting to think about it in those terms, that it's that energy exchange. I was here to learn something, and they showed up to help me have this experience so I could move forward and do with it what I will, if I choose to heal or not. But their spirit was here to have an experience that's going to help them in a spiritual manner for whatever it is they needed. Is that it? I'm just excited about that piece of information. I'm really excited about it.
Well, it's so cool, but it also demonstrates the teacher and the student on both sides.
Yes.
All the time. It's always happening, and it's a choice, right? Because we're here on free will. So it's our choice to either evolve or not to evolve. But no matter what, however we show up in the world, we're planting seeds. However we show up in the world.
Yeah.
So even that person, if they are showing up and it's bringing you a not so positive experience, they're still showing up in the world for something that we can gain from. Like, oh yeah, look at that. I didn't have a response, or I didn't react. There's everything is meant to be as it is, really. Even though we have all these movable parts, and we can make all these decisions and have this free will to either stay at home and lock ourselves up or go out and live life. But that's free will, period.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's so freeing too, because then you also get a different perspective of the other person. It's back to the same thing. They're a soul, so am I. Even if that person on the road was a poop head, that they're still part of this whole experience too. There's nothing wrong with them. It's part of an experience. Maybe not so positive sometimes, but it's still part of our experience. And we can choose however we're going to move from that. And it's awesome.
And so that person, if they're in traffic and whatever, they speed by you because you're going too slow and they flip you off, it's what are you internalizing from that experience? And what are they internalizing from that experience, if they are? So I know Bev is on this journey of having self-awareness and healing those emotional and mental wounds within herself. And so she may not in the moment, she might be in a bad mood that moment too. But later she may take a look at that situation and go, okay, well, why did I show up like that? What was my reaction for? But at the same time, the other person has most likely some anger or aggression within them in that moment. And it's whatever they do with the information, that are they just going to keep living life from that state of mind? Are they going to, are they maybe on this self-awareness journey and might think about it later and go, man, I was really uncalled for, or we don't know. We're never probably going to know what the other person is going through. But recognizing we're all having these experiences for each other.
Yeah. And it's saying, when you just said that sometimes we don't know what they're going through, when we're so wrapped up in our own stuff, we don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
But when we're not so wrapped up in our own stuff and we have such an awareness of what's around us, and that means people, person, situations, everything, we have a different response to it because we can feel. I mean, that is possible. At least it is for me. I'm not saying that everybody can do that, because it's like part of a journey. I have a friend that she takes dictation, and it's like she can type out 260 words per minute or whatever. And we've been talking about things about how spirit kind of, we think all this stuff is mundane, but part of it's all the process. And it just depends on how long we want to stay in each process, really. And she's been trained, if you're taking dictation, you're trained to listen. So that's a natural thing, right?
Yeah.
Me doing massage, I haven't always been this way, not with an awareness that I've been trained to feel things. And so now it's gotten to the point when someone walks in and I say, how are you doing? As long as I'm not wrapped up in my own BS, my belief systems, right? Like Suzanne Giesemann says, as long as I'm not wrapped up in my story, then I'm going to be aware that there's something off here, and how I feel it through my filters. And then I have an opportunity to be able to see that person and help to enlighten them, or to help take in some of their load off their shoulders so that because they have now have an opportunity for an outlet. They have an opportunity, doesn't mean they always take the choice. I can say things like, are you sure everything's okay? Because I can see a heaviness on the person. I can see shadows on a person. I can see, I'm just trying to describe different ways of looking at it. I can feel there's a heaviness for the person and they're saying, oh no, I'm great. Everything's fine. And I said, are you sure? And then they start telling me things. And then that's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to take the weight off their shoulders a bit, because we've talked about this enough times. When we start expressing ourselves and having these conversations, we start recognizing sometimes when we say the things, it's like, oh, I was really holding on to that. Like I was holding on to that. And because when we put it out loud, it's totally heard and felt differently than how it is ran through this mill inside of our head. So we have these opportunities, right? And so everything that you're saying just leads us right into the next thing. And it's an awareness. And how do we, if we're in that space and we recognize it, well, how do we know? Because we're paying attention to how we feel, because it didn't feel good. If an interaction with somebody else doesn't feel good, you know it. It's not like, oh gosh, I got to figure this out. No, you know it. You just know it. You know, I was talking to someone yesterday and we were talking about just the, well, I could use kids, for example. Me as being a kid, I remember I didn't hardly tell my parents anything about my experiences in life, but I didn't feel like I could talk to them about stuff like that. But now when I look at it, I couldn't talk to them about stuff like that because I knew inside it didn't resonate. It didn't feel right. So it wasn't a conversation I was going to have with anybody else. If I'm in a relationship that's kind of abusive, I say kind of, right? Because most of those times we'll say kind of because it really is, on the bottom line, it's abusive. But when we start talking about it out to someone else, then we recognize how bad it sounds or how it feels. And it's like, why are we still in that space? But sometimes we're processing stuff, just going through this whole thing. We're experiencing things and we can't always discuss all those things. So it's still just being there for the person and not trying to fix it, just being there to listen. And then it's like whatever spirit wants to bring in, whatever God wants to bring forward, that's the stuff to share. And so it's just because you said awareness, all of it has to do with awareness, all of it. Because I can get wrapped up in all my stuff and then not be able to not be a participant in any of it stuff that could help the evolution of myself and that person.
Yeah. I had the opportunity. I didn't do so good. Well, I wouldn't say that. I think I did really well as far as my emotional state in the moment that the person who molested me, their friend was at an event that I went to this weekend. And the thing is, this person knew, the friend knew about it and knew what was going on for quite some time. Of course, I found that information out later in life, but so having this information I talked about at the beginning, I had a heads up before walking in the door that this person was there. And I was like, okay. So I just kind of did a check-in, took a breath before I walked in. There was a bunch of people there. Anyway, this person came over as some of us were having a conversation, and this person came over and sat with us to my right. And noticing that I didn't have the anger that I had before, noticing the shame and guilt wasn't showing up like it did before. I was pretty relaxed in my body. So, when you're in a situation like that, that it in the past could have been very easy for me to be very, very angry and have my body just tense up and nervous and spinning out. But I didn't. I also didn't interact with them much. He said something to me, I answered him, and then I kept my attention this way, just knowing he was sitting there. So, but having this information that he has his own spiritual growth and expansion from the whole experience as well. Still noticing though, some healing to be had on my part, which is okay. But it was also an indicator, as I say many times, of how I'm doing. So I compare myself to how I used to be. And knowing that how much more relaxed I was in my body, knowing that this person is 2 feet from me. And in the moment, I did not think about him on a spiritual level because I was still maintaining myself in that presence. But later, giving some thought about it, he also was involved in the experience in whatever way, and for his spirit to learn something from it, whatever that might be. He might even be carrying some, possibly, I don't know, could be carrying some guilt for having known and not saying anything. So, or help out or something to diffuse the situation. So it wasn't until later that I was able to start having that conversation within myself about what are possibilities of was his spirit, or was he involved in the whole dynamics of the experience. So it was quite interesting weekend, to say the least.
It's interesting. And I would say that we're processing a lot of stuff, and we have these conversations, and there seems to be similarities. I had a Reiki done on me this weekend, and one of the areas that came up was basically the sacral chakra. And I was told that basically that the way that that was feeling to this individual and indicated to them that there was molestation or something along those lines. And then she started talking about sensuality. And for me, I associated sensuality with sexuality. There, because there's, for me, for my experience, I didn't have the lines are blurred. So I thought it was pretty much the same thing. And she's like, no, it's not the same thing. And it's a sensuality within self. It's not a sensuality to be sensual for somebody else. It's having that sensuality for self. And I'm like, I have no idea what that looks like. Even as far as being a sexual person, I'm typically not. That's just not my, I can tell you that there's been still blocks. And it comes back to that molestation. So I was just talking to someone over the weekend about how we when we forgive and we forgive ourselves and everything like that, we may think that we're completely done, but we still house this stuff within inside the body.
Yeah.
And we don't know because we didn't have the tools, right? But all of a sudden now we have the tools. All of a sudden now you have the tools for this experience. All of a sudden now I have the tools for this experience. And we show up the best way we can, but it's made me process and question things a lot for myself and to look at things. I have been guided by spirit. Last week was to cut cords with my story. And I thought that's interesting. That's an interesting process, because if I want to bring God through me all the time, I can't carry that story anymore. I can't carry my old stories anymore because I'm edging out God. I'm not allowing God to come into this experience with me because I'm holding on to all these other experiences. And I'm just saying this for myself because I've gone through processes, right? But it's being in awareness of that's exactly what I was doing. So that's part of the process. And then this morning, while I was driving, I was told to, it's time for me to let go and release of all judgments of others, self, and situations. And it's part of a process. It's just part of what does it look like? I don't know for sure, but I just know for me, it's just like, why just let it go? What happened? I let it go. So it's like, it's just putting it in the past tense, and I'm going through this process because we talk about what we're going through right now. And these are my processes right now. And it's changing the way that I feel. It's changing the way that gosh, there used to be a time that I would never lay without clothes on, without being covered up with a sheet, ever. And now I could care less. It didn't matter how hot it was. I would still have that one sheet on me covering me up because of shame, I guess. Well, it is shame, because I wrote down shame when you said that. And that was something I recognized a few days ago, even before this Reiki thing, that I've recognized the reason I would cover myself is from shame. Shame because like I did something wrong when I was a child. So I had to forgive myself for thinking those things because it's not true. It's just like, it's another way of letting go of it. So it's like this, I always say it, I find this interesting, the parallels that we have, these experiences. And it happens with the people that are in my life because it's happening with them too. They're having these similar experiences of this letting go. And it's the time, it's this energy. It's we can't keep evolving forward, holding on to all this other stuff.
Yeah. And it is also, I would say, not only shame, it was also a form of protection that
Yeah.
I got my clothes
Oh
on,
yeah.
I got the sheet on, and I would hold that sheet or blanket, hold it to me, and just really pull myself in. And just that was a protection as well.
And I used to lay on my stomach. So laying on my stomach was my protection. I would cover myself down lower and cover myself across my chest. I always had myself, that was,
Yeah.
I was protected. So it was just a way of, and it's not a victim thing or a good or a bad thing. It was how I got from there to here, really. And now
Well, also,
I
you're a
can let
kid,
go more.
right? You're a
Yeah.
kid, and that was the programming or the survival skill you developed at that time, or we developed at that time, and we just carried it until we knew something different, or until
Yeah.
we felt safe, or
And not even being aware, right? Not even knowing that we're doing it, not even knowing why we're doing those things without giving ourselves awareness, without getting to know ourselves.
yeah. We are such fascinating beings, and there's so much more to this package than what we see just from our human eyes. And it's like, the more I learn and the more things are presented to me, the more excited I get about all these different aspects of how we develop things within ourselves and how we can heal them. And I mean, I'm reading a book right now. It's Awakening the Tiger by Peter Levine. And one of the things he does, like the entire book is comparing us to animals. And one thing that stood out the most is that when an animal has a traumatic experience, they literally shake their body. They just do this, right? They just shake their body, and it's almost like a reset for them.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
What do? We take it in and we stuff it in our body, and then we talk about it, or we hang on to it and not talk about it, and it's just stored in us and we don't know what to do with it. And so we just, the trauma of life, I mean, on any level, it could be very minuscule or it could be very intense, that we store it in our body and we never, I'll say never, typically, um it's just in there, and then we compound it with more and more and more and more and more of life experiences, and we never have that release. So I thought that was very fascinating to learn that as well. And I've been around people who do, you know um where I've been in groups, and I've also seen it like through Zoom, where they start playing music and people are just really just shaking their body, like standing up and just really shaking their body, and they're just feeling, so they're releasing it through sound, and when they get done, it's like just total relaxation.
Nice.
Now, when I had those experiences, I was not in a space of myself to allow myself that type of freedom. I mean, still hanging on to that introverted background, and oh yeah, no, I'm not, I'll sit here and kind of move my body, but I am not making all those sounds and really letting it go. But that that is another form of a technique to allow yourself to free your body of some of that emotion that you've been hanging on to without having the conversation or having to maybe dive deep. But a lot of times, when we can identify what the trauma is or the root of it, when we do that movement of the body, we can really associate of the releasing of it.
What is that technique? Do you know?
No, it's just been, it has just showed up in different classes and things I've taken, where um they just start playing music, and then there are some people that can just really get into it and just allow that physical and verbal release. So
Because
nothing.
I would like to do that. I would like to do that. So when you were talking about all the stuff, the thing that I was processing, I'm 54 years old right now. Could I imagine possibly all the food that I've eaten since the day that I was born to right now and never digesting it? That's
Mm,
the same thing. When we're holding on to all that stuff, we've taken all this information and all this other stuff and never done anything with it. We've just held on to it,
yeah.
honestly. And it's like, I can't even imagine never digesting that stuff. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're in the process of digesting this stuff. I am not very free with my body, or haven't been. The last couple of days, I'm doing things differently. So I'm just like, this is my body. Hello, world. I mean, I live out in the middle of nowhere. So it's like, I can do what I want. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that. And I am doing what I want. And it's like, and I've caught myself looking down at myself, judging myself. And it's like, no, this is for me to embrace. And that's where letting go of the judgment, a lot of the judgment and stuff like that comes from. So it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot from that process to take in, but I'm really interested. I'll do some research on this because and I'll probably the first few times probably do it by myself. Even like Kundalini yoga, if anyone's done Kundalini yoga, some of the movements can be seductive or, kind of an odd, and it's like a fast breathing and all this stuff. And it's like, I have done that a few times too. And I feel it's a very freeing for my body without even having to know why. And I'll just feel more happy, more
Yeah.
balanced, more grounded.
Yeah. Also look up goddess yoga, because that will help you with sensuality within your body.
Oh,
It also, I mean, even though it's yoga, there are some movements that will are, I mean, sensual. So, but you're on your mat doing your thing while everybody else doing their thing. There's no interaction. But goddess yoga, there's a lady we both know who does goddess yoga. She don't live here. She used to, but Alicia. Um, and yeah, so goddess yoga is a good way when and then I also have another connection I can give you who actually teaches. She moved into the sexual relationship with your significant other, but she did start from having a sensual relationship with herself. So she
I like
teaches
it.
from that to the other, and I can get that information for you as well. But um, anyways, we wrap this up. Um, this was a lot. So this one you want to listen to a couple times. Do you have any other final words for the audience?
Live your best life.
Yeah, for sure. And whatever way that looks like for you, because whatever your best life is right now, it's not going to be the same in 6 months or a year or 20 years. But is it your best life from how you used to be? And
Yeah.
that's our indicator. How am I doing now compared to how I used to be? So,
Not comparing it to somebody else, not
no,
comparing it to Give Me Your Bed, because we're on our own journeys.
yeah,
Even though there may be parallels, but certain things are going to work for us that aren't going to work for the other.
right. Yes. Thank you. All right, my friends. Thanks for hanging out with us. Tea time with Amy and Bev. We're keeping these shorts. We got to do a few recordings within a short amount of time because we have life happening as well, and we're excited about it, but we still want to show up. So be sure to catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, uh, Google Podcast, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're like all over the place. So it should be easy to find us. It's Amy and Bev Community is our channel. So Amy and Bev Community, have these conversations with your friends and family, and let them know what'd you learn and what's working for you, because other people can utilize that information as well. So with that, my friends, Make it an incredible day. It's going to be what you make it. And we will see you next time.
See you later.